about being in the wilderness. And we spoke about the rod of Aaron, along with the 11 other rods that God commanded Moses to bring into his presence. And in a matter of one night, Aaron's rod budded, it blossomed, and it brought almonds, all in the wilderness. So we said that even if you're in your wilderness, you can still tap into a harvest. That was not just a sermon. That was an instruction. For those of you that missed it, that was your instruction. That even in your wilderness, if your eyes are on the wilderness, you will tap into the wilderness. But if your eyes are on the harvest, you will tap into the harvest. Because as the prophet has said, you become what you behold. So if you're so focused on the wilderness that you're going through, 10 years go by, 20 years go by, 25, 30 years, 40 years go by, you're still in the wilderness, try changing the direction of your gaze. Begin to look at and prophesy your harvest. I read a beautiful verse which got my spirit excited. Can I share it with you? And then we'll go into the word. It's okay? Just a little deviation. You don't have to go there, but you can check it out later. Psalm 34 verse 5. They looked unto him, and they were lightened, and their faces were not ashamed. So why did this verse excite my spirit? Because they were in the wilderness, and Moses was the only one who looked unto God day and night. And in looking unto God day and night, his face was lightened by the glory of God. So there was a posture that Moses took in the wilderness, in beholding God, not the wilderness. He was in the tent, closed doors, with God standing at the door in a cloud. So that way you couldn't even see through the crack in the tent if the wind came. The cloud is standing there so thick you can't even see through it. No, God says, I want you all to myself. He hides himself in the tent. And in the tent, he has only one thing he could do, is look at God. No sound, because he was a distance away from the people. No sound. No distractions. No cell phones. Ding. No distractions. No videos. No movies. No shopping. No cars to wash. No grass to cut. No weeds to pull. You know what I'm talking about? Hidden in the presence of God, hidden in the tent of glory, where he can only behold God day and night. You have to understand, now Moses is standing outside his own tent, and it says that when the cloud would come down, he would go out to the tent of meeting and meet with God. So that means he didn't have somebody come up to him and tap him on the shoulder while he was making, tapas or something, and saying, listen, man of God, I think the cloud has come down. I think the Lord wants you to go to the tent. No. He was looking at the cloud even when he wasn't in the tent of meeting. Day and night, his eyes were fixed on God. He's in his own tent, he's still looking at God. He's back in the tent of meeting. In the house of God, he's still looking at God. You could not take his eyes off of God. And even in the wilderness, keeping his eyes on God caused his face to shine with so much light that people had to look away. But you shine with so much light that you become attractive, that people come close to see, what is that burning bush I see in your face? There is a place in the wilderness where you become the fire of God. Okay. I'll leave that for you guys to go deeper into. I just came across that verse, and all of a sudden my spirit was set on fire. I'm like, oh my God. This is what the prophet was talking about during the cloud services. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that the Lord deposited that into me, so I'm able to understand what the prophet was talking about during those services. All right. Would you like to get into the word? Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 15, verses 1 to 4. And then after that, we're going to look at 1 Kings 15, 9 to 14. 1 Kings 15, verses 1 to 4. Now, in the 18th year of King Jeroboam, the son of Nabat, reigned Abijam over Judah. 3 years reigned he in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Abishalom. And he walked in all the sins of his father, which he had done before him. And his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father. Nevertheless, for David's sake, did the Lord his God give him a lamp in Jerusalem, to set up his son after him, and to establish Jerusalem. 1 Kings 5, verse 9 to 14. And in the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, reigned Asa over Judah. And 41 years reigned he in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Abishalom. And Asa did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, as did David his father. And he took away the Sodomites out of the land, and removed all the idols that his fathers had made. And also Maacah his mother, even her he removed from being queen. Ouch. Because she had made an idol in a grove. And Asa destroyed her idol and burnt it by the brook Kidron. But the high places were not removed. Nevertheless, everyone say nevertheless. Hallelujah for nevertheless. Asa's heart was perfect with the Lord all his days. You may be seated. We start off by hearing some funky names. Now, I say that just because it's very difficult for me to pronounce them, but if you can bear with me, there's Abijam. Abijam is about to become king because his father has passed away. His father is King Rehoboam. Y'all know King Rehoboam? If you don't, King Rehoboam is the son of King Solomon. King Solomon is the son of King David. Right. Now Abijam becomes king, and it says he walked in all the sins of his father. Now when you read that, you have to stop and wonder. I know the first thing that goes through our mind is, what were the sins of the father? Because we're curious. We want to know, what were the mistakes? But the thing is, in a season when we are studying our soul, when we are studying our character, in a season when we are studying the wilderness, we don't want to know what are the sins only, but how did it come to be? Because if I can understand how it came to be, then I can begin to cut off the process by which the enemy has access into my life. Because if the enemy has access into my life, then he has access into my lineage. So by attacking the children of God that came from David, Satan wasn't just trying to kill them, he was trying to get to Jesus. All right. So every time the enemy attacks you, who is he attacking? He's attacking the Jesus in you. Because he doesn't want you to have a connection with Jesus. All right. So King Abijam is there. Now, King Abijam is an excellent student, because it says he walked in all the ways of his father. Now, you are all incredible children. You all had a mother, father at one point. Maybe you still do. If ever your parents told you, I didn't tell you to do it like that, I told you to do it like this, can't you get it right? Or you made a mistake. Or they tell you, you put too much salt in the sauce, there's not enough in the pasta, too much vinegar in the salad. All of those would disqualify you from being in Abijam's shoes, who says he walked in all the ways of his father. Means he's a good student. He knows exactly what his father likes. He knows exactly how his father does things. And he says, I'm going to do exactly the same way. So where did Abijam learn from? He learned from his father, who was King Rehoboam. Okay. Where did King Rehoboam learn from? King Solomon. So that means Abijam, when he was a little boy, started learning from his father. So he walked with his father. He watched his father. His father, when he was growing up, he walked with his father, Solomon. He walked with his father. He learned from his father. So everything that Solomon was doing, Rehoboam did, because he's being trained to be a king like his father. And so now here comes Abijam, and he's being trained to be a king like his father. At one point, Solomon received instructions from King David. that were supposed to set the course of his life for prosperity and for goodness. And what was the most important command that was given to King Solomon? Do not go astray unto the other gods of the land. That was that's the only command of protection that was given to Solomon. He had one thing to follow. Forget, he walked in all the ways of his father. He had one thing. You have problems remembering how many chores you have to do and at what time and on what days and when the garbage comes and when the recycling comes. He had one thing to do. Just don't go to other gods. Okay, Pop, I'm not going to go to other gods. No. He had how many wives? Had how many? Some of us have difficulty with one. This man was so anointed. So anointed. Sorry. That he said, I'm able to take on. He could handle the wives, but he couldn't handle their gods. He could handle his wife, but he couldn't handle their gods. You can handle having your wife around, but you can't stand her issues. She can handle having you around, but she can't stand your issues. You see, you can have somebody with you, but still not deal with things that are gods in their life that they're not able to give up. This was Solomon's issue. He tolerated, because of his compassion, because of his love, because his uncontrollable desire, he tolerated a little bit of error for the greater good of showing love. God was trying to tell him, it is better that your heart belongs to me 100% than you show 99% love and 1% uncleanness before me, 1% error. God was trying to tell him, if you walk in all the ways of David your father. See, don't get me wrong, David himself had problems. He had his own mistakes. You remember he killed somebody just because he liked the wife? That sin that was in his DNA continued into his son. But his son multiplied and amplified and excelled in doing it. But now, Rehoboam learned from Solomon that it's okay to have many wives. It's okay to go after other gods. So now Solomon teaches Rehoboam how to be a king like him. Son, you have to show love. In showing love, you can't tell people that what they're doing is wrong. You can't tell people, no, you can't say that your God is the only way. You can't tell people Jesus is the only way to heaven. You have to say, I understand you have your God that works for you. My God works for me. And so he teaches them, listen, be tolerant. Accept it. It's okay. It's okay to tolerate a little bit. But it's not okay to tolerate a little bit. It's not okay to tolerate a little bit. So what happens is one king begins to influence his son. That son becomes king. Now that son begins to influence his son. And now that son, so what happens is through the lineage, not through an inheritance of character, but through a development of character. What happens is one generation gets destroyed. The next generation gets destroyed. And the next generation gets destroyed. And that is what we are looking at today in society. One generation after another generation after another generation getting destroyed. Why? Because there wasn't somebody to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, and we are changing things. We tolerate the fact that in government, maybe, there's no Christians, but they're not that bad, that they talk nice. They say the right things at the right time just to get elected. But then when elections are done, everyone talks about how they said all these things, but they didn't do them. But then you re-vote for the same guy the next time. Hey, elections are coming up. Your character is not inherited, is what the prophet was saying. It is a development through life. So many things that you are struggling with, many difficulties that you're going through, the urges, the desires, are developed character issues inside of you. You might see it in your mother, you might see it in your father, so you think that you've inherited it from them. You haven't. It's been developed because Satan develops character flaws in us through three things. Our character is developed, number one, through words. Your character is developed through words. When someone is speaking to you, they're transferring to you and imagination. They're transferring to you the ability to imagine what could be. What could be. So because that is coming to you, you begin to develop a character that desires that, a pursuit after that. Second thing, not just words, but exposure. Someone begins to expose you to something, now you begin to become curious about it. You know what I'm talking about, guys? When someone exposes you to something? Yeah. They expose your heart. Now what happens is now you become curious. Now the first time it required someone to show you something. But the second time it doesn't require somebody to show you something, because now you are curious that you want to go and see it yourself. This is how the enemy begins to destroy character. So now you have curiosity. Curiosity is what the enemy uses to get you to choose to fall. If there is no curiosity in you, you will not choose to fall. You have to kill curiosity. Turn to your neighbor and say, kill curiosity. Your curiosity is what the enemy is trying to bait. He's trying to bait. You have an imagination. In your imagination, you can still escape. When you have curiosity, now it becomes a wrestling match. Have you ever heard the saying, curiosity gets the better of me? Well, you have now. Curiosity, because curiosity is what stirs up your soul. It's what stirs up your desire. Curiosity. You wonder, maybe things will be better if I was with that woman or that guy. Maybe things would be better if I was in that car. Maybe things would be better if I was in that job. Maybe things would be better, you become curious. So you begin to toy with what? With the words, with the imagination that's already in your head. So it starts with imagination. Now you're curious, so you begin to play with that imagination. So from imagination, you're going to curiosity. After curiosity, you begin to fall into craving. Craving comes once you taste. The moment curiosity opens the door to a taste, you've now exposed yourself to a craving. From that craving is where the big battle begins. Because now that you have a taste for it, you want it. Someone once told me, you know, if you never feed your child meat, they'll never want meat. I think it's a lie, personally. I mean, I think there's even scripture that talks about, you know, staying away from vegetables, or there should be. But the thing is that once you have a taste of something, your soul is now stirred up with a hunger for what you've tasted. That is why when it comes time to eat after a Sunday meal, or not after Sunday meal, after the Sunday word, you go out and say, honey, what are we gonna have for dinner? I don't know. Where do you want to go? What are you appealing to? You're appealing to a taste that you've already had before. You're trying to discover what does my soul crave? What am I desiring? Because at one point there was a thought, oh, this restaurant has good food. This restaurant has a good menu. This restaurant has good class. They have good service. So you go there. Now you have a taste inside of you. So now that craving is pulling up a taste that you had from the past. And now that is trying to lead your present and your future. Let's go there. Let's spend this. Let's do that. Let's say that. So the enemy is always working in these areas to try and develop a character in you. But, everyone say but. But King Abijam only lasted 3 verses. That means there can be a very quick end to King Abijam in your life. There can be a very quick end to that character that the enemy has had that the enemy has had control over. There could be a very quick end to the cravings in your life. There could be a very quick end to the curiosity that has compelled you to go after things, to think after things, to toy with things in your head. There could be a very quick end to your imaginations that lure you away. Daydreaming is not visions from God. They can be very tempting, I know. That's why we call it a temptation. Because it's coming to test. Test what? Your ability to develop character. The temptation is testing your ability to choose which character you want. This is why the enemy is always targeting children when they are young. Earlier and earlier and earlier in age, the enemy is coming And he's trying to get information into the spirits of our children. If you look at nowadays, there's some information that are taught to people in 4th grade and 5th grade that we weren't taught until we were in 11th grade. Things that they're learning now, you're like, you can't believe they're learning that at what age? They don't even know what that thing is called. And they're learning it. The enemy is trying to what? Put words, imaginations, trying to stir up curiosity. Because now they're like saying, here, feel this. This is what it looks like. This is what you're supposed to do. You're creating curiosity. So that way they can have a taste. And once they have a taste, it's got them. And they're selling it off as what? We're instructing, we're teaching our children. It's education. We want them to be safe. We want them to be protected. No, you don't. You're being carried by a demonic spirit that is trying to destroy the children of God that are pursuing Jesus Christ. King Asa comes along and he says what? He grew up hearing the same father. Maybe not as close as Abijam, but he grew up hearing the same father. But he grows up and he sees Abijam and the way he's doing things. But when he comes into power, he does something different. He puts his foot down. He says, I'm doing things differently. Why? Because I've studied your life. And in studying your life, I don't see anything good. I don't see anything that has brought fruit. In studying your life, I don't see God in it. I don't see the pleasure of God. I don't see the heart of God. I don't see the hand of God. I don't see the glory of God. I don't see the weight of God. So if I am going to become king, I want my kingdom to look different. I don't need my house to look like your house. Are you listening to me? You don't need your home to look like your parents' home. You don't need to teach your children the way you were taught. You can be different. You can choose to do different. You don't need to drive the same car your parents drove. You don't need to live in the same area your parents lived. You don't need to eat the same food your parents ate. You can choose to be different. Choose to say, I am set apart. Oh, well, we went to church, we were set apart as well. Yeah. But I can choose to be different. I can choose to walk at a different level with God. I can choose to walk at a different standard with God. I can be one of those people that keeps my eyes fixed on Jesus day and night, so that way my face can be lighted. So that way God can do something through my life. Because if I walk the way you walked, I will end up the way your life looks like now. And I don't want that. I want to be different. Today, choose your character. Don't allow yourself to be carried by your character. Today you choose. Today you choose.